Okay, my name is Ross and I'm an alcoholic.
Ross.
I think to start with, I'm like super grateful, to be sharing at this particular meeting. I was in treatment in this side of the world as well. I went into treatment just over a year ago. And this is really, I think, where my recovery started, I saw a lot of people sharing at this meeting, sharing their 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and so on. And I always wanted that, like I wanted to be where they were, and I didn't think that would ever happen, So for those of you who are still in treatment, I've been exactly where you are, I know what that's like. I think like my main message to start with would be that you don't have to do this alone, like when you leave treatment, as you know, there is this fellowship, Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's other fellowships as well, If you look at the similarities between them and not the differences, they all have the same kind of program. The principles are the same, They work on the 12 steps, and you're not alone, Nobody has to give you permission to be part of these fellowships. You don't have to pay anything. You're a part of them just by thinking it, If you say you're part of Alcoholics Anonymous, you're a part of it. Simple as that. It's really your choice. And if you are desperate, if you feel absolutely desperate, like you have no hope whatsoever, there is no chance for you, that might be the best place you could be. And I'm sure you've heard that before many times. It's just so true, that kind of, we talk about the gift of desperation, that gives us the humility to try something different and to maybe listen to another human being, to stop being the power in your life. And I know my talk is probably going to have a lot of these cliches in there, just for today, I'm the power in my life, that kind of thing. I think that's okay, like I didn't get into recovery to be original, these kind of principles have kept thousands of people clean before me, and they're pertinent to my recovery as well, for sure. So for sure, there's this solution that definitely works. I'm not saying it's the only solution. I don't know. Maybe people can find recovery in other ways, but this is something that's definitely worked for me, and I can only really share my experience and like tell you that I've seen it work in so many other lives, like big time, completely hopeless cases. So before I got into recovery, like I was definitely a mess. I was in an extremely bad way. My behavior around substances got me into a hell of a lot of trouble, and I caused a lot of pain for people around me, for sure. But I'd been to treatment before. I was in a lot of denial. I didn't consider myself an alcoholic, or an addict. I was introduced to the 12 steps, but it didn't apply to me at all, and so I didn't adopt that. I didn't adopt a new way of life. I didn't change anything in my life, and obviously that was a complete flop, And a little while later, I kind of landed at Cedars, and I'm not going to give you all the war stories, but I'll just explain to you what got me there is. So my behavior around substances got me into a hell of a lot of trouble, obviously, and. Before coming into Cedars, I'd been in and out of psych wards, for fairly long stays, I suppose, like 3-4 weeks at a time, in psychiatric wards, being put on various psychiatric medications, being taken off medications. I went through severe withdrawals from those medications that were absolutely life-altering. I won't dwell on it too much, but I was at a stage where I didn't want to live anymore, not because I was depressed and unhappy and anxious, but because the suffering was so severe that I couldn't bear it. It was too painful, physically, emotionally. I was desperate to not exist anymore, and for a very long time, for months and months and months. And it's quite scary because we were talking to my parents last night, and they were telling us how. My mother was telling us how every time her phone rang, she would panic because she thought, maybe, this is the call, where her son is taken his life or whatever, you know. And I really see the impact that my behavior had on the people around me, you know. It had a huge impact on my family, on my wife at the time, my parents, and yeah, you know, outside of my own suffering, I think also at this stage I thought about myself a lot, you know. I was very self-obsessed, very selfish. Everything was about my pain, really, you know. My suffering was the most important, you know. And yeah, so I got to a stage where basically I was down in Belito for a holiday with my family, and I had my bags packed to go home, and we talk about this golden thread in recovery. I don't know whether anybody's heard about that, you know, this golden thread that connects us to a recovery. And you know, my folks had heard about someone who'd been to Cedars. They met somebody who, sorry, I can't say that, can I? To a treatment center down here, and it was just by chance, because basically at that stage it had been suggested that I go to a very big psychiatric facility up in Joburg, which would have been a situation where I was told if I go in there, then I would basically sign my rights away, that I cannot leave there until I'm better, you know, until they decide that I'm okay. And just by chance, like my family heard about this treatment center, and it was suggested that maybe I should go there. And at the time, I didn't really know what to do, you know. I also felt like every decision that I made just got me into more and more trouble, just deeper and deeper, into trouble. And so I basically said to my folks, well, you tell me what you want me to do, you know. It was such a desperate situation, and you know, they sort of came to the conclusion that, you know, maybe it would be better if they just try this treatment center first, you know, before putting me into this facility, which I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have come out of, you know. I don't think my life would look the way that it does today if I had gone there. I'm not saying it's not. There's something I just have to that's quite important, is that I don't want to say that kind of treatment is, not good for everybody. I don't want to say that. I want to tell you that psychiatric medication is not good for everybody. Like, some people maybe do need that kind of intervention in their life, you know. But I just knew that for me that wasn't really the solution, you know. And so they kind of suggested, well, let's try that first. Let's go to this treatment center first. And that's what we did. And, you know, in like a weird way, without me even knowing about it and not consciously doing it, it's almost like a mini step one, maybe, you know, like letting somebody else make a decision. Maybe I keep making bad decisions, you know, I'll do what somebody else does. And obviously I didn't do that consciously. It's just the way that it worked. So, yeah, I landed up at this treatment center, and you know, at the end of the day, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I feel privileged to have gone there. You know, I think it absolutely saved my life completely. And I don't want to say this whole process has changed my life. I think it's just changed the way I respond to my life, I guess, you know. The way I react to things in my life, for sure, is just completely different. And yeah, it was, you know, I think the most important thing coming into treatment was sort of reaching some level of surrender, you know. I think before that I had all the solutions. I was researching the best way to get well, you know, to fix myself, to put my life back on track, and I knew everything, you know. Nobody knew better than I did, and that all like slowly changed when I was in treatment, and it wasn't easy either. It was a long road, and like a lot of people that were with me in treatment will know, you know, like I spent a lot of time in treatment crying. I was taken off medication, and that was a complete nightmare, you know. I thought I wasn't going to make it. I think if I was anywhere else, they probably would have just thrown me back on the stuff, you know what I mean? It was so severe, and yeah, I found a lot of love there, you know. The people in treatment, a lot of people pulled me through that, for sure. I love being at these shares, you know, seeing other people's stories of strength and hope. I remember very long ago, the first time I was in a treatment center, I saw a guy share down there who had a very similar story to mine. At the time, I mean, I was a complete mess. I was riddled with anxiety and fear and, pain. And I saw him share, and I just, I just wanted to be where he was, really. And then like a year later, when I was in treatment here, he walked through these doors, and gave a share. I don't know which, it was probably like his 3-year share or 2 years, I can't remember. And it was amazing to see him again. It was such a God moment for me to see this guy sharing. And at this point, I was quite some time into my treatment, and I felt a lot better. I got to watch him share with peace in my heart. It was such a God moment, and now I get to share with that guy through H&I up in Joburg. I see him all the time. I sit next to him in these meetings, and we share our stories of hope, and I love it. And that's one of the things that I love about this fellowship as well, it's a fellowship of people just like us, I suppose. You can always, as the preamble says, you can choose to look at the differences if you want to. But, we're very similar to each other in lots of ways. We get each other, we understand when somebody needs comfort, and we also know when we're bullshitting each other as well. You know what I mean? And that's beautiful. It's very powerful. Yeah, I must say, in treatment, I think, as I say, the biggest thing for me was reaching that point of surrender and just starting to do things that other people told me to do, I was very self-centered and self-obsessed in treatment, and maybe in some ways I still am, but, I just remember going to my counselor at the worst times, in tears, and I'd always get the same response, go and read this chapter of the big book, go make someone some coffee, and all of those little things were so important to me, and they helped me a lot in my recovery for sure, I think even when I was in treatment, I was in a hell of a lot of denial. I felt like a victim. I was resentful to everybody. I was the victim. Terrible things were happening to me. None of it was my fault. I blamed everybody. I blamed my wife. I blamed family. I blamed friends. I blamed doctors. I never looked at myself. And I think the game changer for me was definitely the 12 steps. Absolutely. I found my solution in the 12 steps for sure. I love the program. It forced me to examine myself, It forced me to examine my behavior, how I reacted to other people. It forced me to examine my feelings and how I respond to them, the reasons for why I turned to drugs, alcohol, drugs, why they were my solution, So there's a hell of a lot of power in that program for sure. It's probably the most spiritual thing that I've ever done in my life, And coming into treatment, I thought it was a bit weird. I felt like it seems very clinical, this 12-step program, Step 1, do this, like a manual. But really, it's been definitely the most spiritual thing I've ever done, and not just working it academically, like we do in treatment, but living it, every single day. So when in treatment, when you talk about finishing the 12 steps, if you finish the steps, you never actually finish the steps, You finish them academically, but you live them forever, probably. So I definitely was in a lot of denial as well, as I said, going through treatment for sure. And I remember sort of towards the end of my treatment, I definitely had thoughts like, when I leave here, am I going to still go to meetings? Am I going to do this stuff? Am I an alcoholic? And so on. And I definitely had a lot of denial. And I remember just before I left, my counselor, I can't remember whether it was in my leaving group or what, but he said to me, the biggest mistake you can make is when you leave treatment is you can start listening to this again, You're going to stop going to meetings, you're going to stop talking to me, you're going to forget about the literature, and you're going to find yourself right back in the same place all over again. And I think those words really resonated with me. And what I did when I left treatment is I did plug into the fellowship, I plugged into the fellowship, I plugged into service, I made that connection. And I think it was the best thing I could have done, and not just for me, also for other people, because being part of this fellowship means that you're actually helping other people, carrying the message to others for sure. And also, I don't want to sit here and paint this picture like I'm this guru and I'm perfect and everything is perfect in my life. I think, well, it is perfect, but everything is great, you know. I think the biggest mistake I made when I left treatment is I thought that, you know, I could handle any situation now because I've got this program and nothing can disturb me anymore. You know, I'm absolutely pure. I don't have negative emotions. I don't get sad. I don't get depressed. And I remember a counsellor saying to us in treatment, like, treatment's easy. You know, you've got to do a few chores here. You've got to listen to what people tell you, and that's it. When you leave, it's real. And I thought, no ways. Like, concern groups are terrible. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard. And then I left treatment, and life hit me hard, like heavy. I felt like I had no program when I left treatment. It was like I don't know. It was like I was writing a test that I was absolutely not prepared for when I came out of treatment. It was bad, and a few big things happened in my life. You know, my marriage collapsed like shortly after I left treatment, and I thought like, but I've got this program. You know, like, why is this happening to me? It was hard. At that point, I actually had thoughts of coming back into treatment. It was so bad, you know. And I phoned a friend who'd been through something similar to me, and again, that's what I love about the fellowship, you know. And this person spoke to me, and he sort of gave me my reality, and explained a few things to me, and gave me guidance, you know. And it helped a lot. I didn't go back into treatment, and I plugged into my program, and that's what I did. I managed to find acceptance in a lot of the things that were going on for me. But my point is that I'm not cured. Like, if I was, then when I walked out of treatment, I wouldn't need to carry on with the program, and I wouldn't need to go to meetings and help other people and do all these things. I'd be cured, and that's not the case. I think what I've learned is that it's okay for me to feel negative things sometimes. But the way that I respond to those things is so different now, and the way that I behave is different. And one thing that I can tell you is that alcohol and substances are not a solution for me at all, where in the past they definitely were, for various things, you know. And they're just not anymore, definitely. So, yeah, I just, going back to that, when I left treatment, I just thought, even though I'm still in treatment and it's so early in my recovery, you know, things seem to just be better since I've been listening to someone else, you know, since I've actually followed suggestion of my sponsor, and that's why I sort of carried on, you know. I suppose I didn't want to be the power in my life anymore, and I don't know how all of this works. Although I'm not this guru, I live with a lot of gratitude. I've got a lot of peace in my life, a lot of serenity. Everything in my life changed from the time I sort of went into treatment, you know. But I'm happy with where I am at the moment, you know. I look at life so differently. I've got a hell of a lot of gratitude, and I don't know how the program does that. And there used to be a man, most of you will know, obviously know him. He used to come and speak to us in the mornings in treatment, and he used the analogy of getting into a car when you go to work. You get in your car, you put the key in and you turn the key. You don't really know how that works, you know. All you know is that when you turn that key, the car turns on and you drive. And that's how I feel like my recovery is. I can't tell you why I have more acceptance in my life or gratitude. All I know is that living the way that I do, you know, it just works. It just works. I don't know how, it just does, you know. If you live it, if you follow it, and if you work it, as they say, you know. So yeah, and yeah, just the last thing that I'll say, something quite amazing, is that sitting talking to my parents last night, you know, my stepfather actually said to us that he feels like I am a better person now than I was even before I had any problems, you know, with substances in my life. He feels like I'm a better person, and like that was just an amazing thing, you know. Maybe it was a little bit too much affirmation for me, you know, but it was beautiful to hear that, you know, because I know what I put them through now, you know, just from talking to them. I know the pain that I put them through, and I've carried a lot of guilt for that, for a long time, like a lot of guilt for what they've been through. So to sort of hear them say something so positive, it's so rewarding for me to see that they actually have peace in their heart. You know, they sleep at night. They're not constantly in terror. My mother's not like on the verge of a breakdown every 5 minutes. They're actually happy, you know. And that's what this program has given to me, you know. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to be able to be here and hopefully carry a message to someone, you know, even if it's one person. Yeah, and that message is that, you know, through this program, through this fellowship, there's a lot of hope, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of hope, you know. And I think, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for letting me share.